Okay. First of all, Doctor, thanks very much for your time.
Of course, of course.
Yeah, so a little bit of a background, I think, for yourself regarding myself and Ben. So, I don't know, are you aware of how the education system works in the UK?
I'm not really sure. I never really asked about it. So, I know there's different universities, but I'm not sure to what extent it differs from what we have here in the U.S.
Yeah. I mean, so what we have is from, we'll start at like high school,
Okay.
which is from 12 up until 16, and then from there, if people want to go into education further, it would be what we call sixth form, or would be A levels or further education, which is 16 to 18, which is where me and Ben work. And then from there, you would go into studying a degree, and then your master's or PhD. So it's slightly different in that sense. But from an athletic point of view as well, in terms of sports, it's very different here as opposed to in the US. So in terms of, say, soccer, as you refer to over here, we call it football.
Yeah.
What it really is, but we'll give you that. We'll give you that.
I know. I hear from everyone across the world. No, it's football. It's football. We're the only place that calls it soccer. Yeah, it's funny.
So in that, and what happens there is pretty much play for like a local team, and then one of your big teams, so i.e. Manchester United, Liverpool, would identify a bit of talent, take them into an academy, and if they're good enough, sign a pro contract, and that's how it works. And I know that's very different across in the US. So that's a little bit of a background in terms of where we're from. We're both sports scientists. I'm more into the nutrition side of things. Ben, I'll not speak too much for Ben, but Ben is a very good practitioner and one of the best practitioners I've actually seen in terms of teaching and his mindset and how he does things, so methodical but effective in every instance. I'm not just saying that because he's sitting next to us and I work with him.
Yeah, you can tell me the truth later. It's okay.
Yeah, I mean, Ben's been involved with bodybuilding, and he's very into nutrition and sports as well. But what me and Ben tend to do is at the end of a working day, we'll finish teaching. Yeah, we have ourselves our little whinge about how things have went on, and then we try and put the world to rights. And one of the things that we discuss is obviously around the way society's changing, where we might be at now, and how it's moving forward. And social media seems to be a big part of that. We're really intrigued as to where society stands, how it affects, from my side, definitely nutrition, but also how it affects the next generation, or even the generation we see now in society, because the overlap, I think you would maybe agree, we can talk about how it affects performance, but ultimately these teenagers or even athletes are still exposed to the same environment that we're in. So I think, from my point of view, I'm very interested to see from somebody like yourself who's been there through a range of levels in terms of sports, being in academia, just actually what the hell is going on?
Well, yeah, I mean, and I'm not sure if you saw, but I'm also a college professor here teaching psychology at the undergraduate as well as the graduate levels. And one thing that actually we just talked about this past week is the power of media, but specifically social media, as you alluded to. And there's so many different impacts that it has, and first, I mean, just the development of technology. Now we're starting to see children more and more engaging in a sedentary lifestyle. That's actually what I did my dissertation research on is, because we have a high Mexican American population over here where I live, and seeing how there is an increase in obesity rates, and seeing how sports participation can help that. And so, just the development of social media, now we have kids like, what we call middle school, high school here. they're on the phones. I mean, when I went to school, I never had a cell phone, so I'm not, I was usually outside playing. And over here, you don't see kids playing outside like you used to. Going playing our football in the streets, basketball, baseball, whatever it is, soccer, and but you don't see that as much anymore. And I really have I really believe it's because one of the many reasons is because of the development of technology and social media. But there's so many just different impacts that social media has. I mean, just in general, and not just children, but just adults as well. But especially children, especially adolescents, because you figure during that time, they're trying to find who they are. They're trying to find who their identities, like their sexual orientation, just who they are in general, and who they like to hang out with, that kind of thing. And so they're especially more vulnerable to kind of letting things affect them and impact them, such as social media. And now we're starting to see more and more, and this happens, the children, adolescent, and adult levels, where people are comparing themselves to other people, and they define success or define whatever success means to them based upon how close they get to, like, a celebrity, for instance. Instead of trying to be a better version of themselves, trying to compete with the person they were yesterday. They're trying to compete with other people, and of course you can't control other people, so a lot of times they get let down. And so, and it also kind of taps into this whole gratification, right? Just the development of technology in general has kind of shaped and conditioned a more of an instant gratification over here, at least, where we want things quicker, especially with phones. Like, you could get, there's something called Google, right? That you can have the information at the tips of your fingers, where, even like 30, 40 years ago, I mean, you didn't really have that, and so that's why, all the one-stop shops are so big, because people want things quicker. The problem is, a lot of times, things, as things such as like losing weight or gaining muscle or, making money, those require delayed gratification, or even in sports, winning a championship. It takes time, it takes work, it takes process, but so many people, I mean, I've seen it. I work with athletes at all different levels. Some of them don't like the process. They don't like the grind, and having to, go to practice and train every single day. But some embrace it, and the ones who embrace it are the ones who, usually are more successful, right? And because they can appreciate the how that the process can give them their outcome. And so, I mean, it's, again, kind of going off a little, but it's really relevant, I feel, how social media just kind of shaping people's just kind of how quickly they want things too, whatever that might be.
I think it's as well. I'll thank you, Doctor, as well, for taking time out to do this buffer as well. From someone who looks at it from a curriculum standpoint and teaching it in the classroom, you can see the use of social media or the use of technology is somewhat of a crutch. So that the irony when you say it, it's all the information is at their fingertips, but yet they don't want to do the grind to find the information, which is quite that they've got it more easier than what we ever would have as well. And it's if adversity to me is a good thing, because it creates character, and it's about failing so many times before you perfect it. But unfortunately, it's as if they don't get, because of social media, if they don't get something instantly, or they don't have the new 4-week transformation, the new 6-week transformation, and we're good at putting filters on stuff, it's as if they're not having the same self-worth, or it can knock on that confidence or self-esteem, and they're aspiring to be something that maybe isn't achievable in that space of time as well. I think that has a massive impact on them, performance-wise, in every area of their life. Interestingly, I was listening to a TED talk by Simon Sinek, and he talks about, he went out to a lot of graduate students to see how they were doing in their current jobs. And he said he spoke to a large proportion, I think it was around about 40% after 3 months, was saying, I think I'm going to quit. And he was like, why are you going to quit? And they said, because I don't feel like I've made an impact. but you've only been here for 12 weeks. And I, like, what kind of impact do you think you're going to make in 12 weeks? And, you know, unfortunately, social media, we're very negative about it in a minute, but I think because the kids are not getting that instantaneous fix or that hit of dopamine or what have you, it then becomes, it's not worth it. It's not worth the grind. It's not worth, I'm not making an impact and I need that instantly with it. That's what I seem to see quite a lot in the classroom as well.
Yeah, and that's one thing that, you know, and you're right. You know, we definitely see in the classrooms, you know, because especially, you know, our semesters here go about 16 weeks. You know, and so you know, you have to enjoy the process. You have to appreciate it at the very least, and you know, I've also been a coach for American football for 8 years, high school varsity, and I've seen it there. I've seen how. The teenagers, you know, because they're all, you know, the ones I had were about 15, 16, 17 years of age, you know, and so a lot of them, you know, they didn't like the grind. It's a long off season, right? I mean, you know, our first games weren't until September, but we're starting to train like in January, February. And so, you know, it's a long time, right? And so, you know, and that's why, you know, I was able to use what I know just in sports psychology, just kind of helping me coach, kind of help them get motivated and set goals. Because I'm big on goal setting, you know, same as the long term, you know, midterm, and you know, kind of short term goals, daily goals, and so just to be able to have those little, you know, the little gratifiers once in a while, just to keep them going, you know. This is just to see that they accomplish the short-term goals, which will then get to the, you know, the long-term goals, the outcomes, and what have you. But yeah, I mean, I remember seeing it in a lot of the kids, and it's especially true today, where, you know, they don't want to have to go to practice and do drills. They'd rather just go play the game, and that's it. You know,
enjoyment. They're looking for the enjoyment out of it instantly, instead of the grind.
I think you know. One of the things that I've certainly noticed from my area, and certainly you know, in education as well, you know, I've worked a lot in professional boxing, and I think it's pretty much the same in the US as well as it is here when they're first starting out. You know, it isn't all the, you know, the Floyd Mayweather type events. It is very much small hall, long slog, and promoting themselves. You know, on social media, which is obviously, you know, there is positives to social media. I mean, my personal standpoint is I'm not on there personally. You know, I don't see that I personally have a use for social media, but I understand why, you know, people are on there, and I do appreciate that we have switched to, you know, very much a digital age, whether that's a good or a bad thing. But I do think, and you'll be able to tell us a little bit more. You know, I worked quite a bit, and still do, under a sports psychologist over here called Dr. Claire Thornton, and you know, I've learned quite a lot from her. But some body image and body dysmorphia issues, I think, are very much at the forefront of athletic sports, but as well in general public. And I think an offshot from that is, or a secondary sort of offshot from a body dysmorphia or body image issue, will come down to the nutrition side of things. So if maybe, you know, somebody wants to be or wants to lose weight, they can pick up the phone, go through social media, they can find the latest fad or someone who looks in great shape and they're promoting X, Y, and Z. And unfortunately, as we all know, you know, before we even, as a practitioner, before we even start delving down what to eat and when to eat, there's a multitude of variables we have to understand before we can even tailor that to that person. And unfortunately, I think it's a minefield, and I'm very interested in how you think that the social media is having an impact on how our future generations, or even athletes now, you know, think, or are they so much as controlled by this new way of having to look? You know, and the pressure isn't just on females. I mean, if we go back maybe 10, 15 years, there was a lot of pressure around females to look a certain way. But I think, you know, in this day and age, I think it's both sexes now, both males and females under pressure. And is it a direct effect of social media, or was it already there, and social media has allowed this to flourish to a point where now people look to, I want to look this way, and then 6 weeks later, the next fad or the next way to look has come. So the masses shape across there, and I'm just wondering, how much of a detrimental effect that is actually having in terms of mental health in itself. Because is it that somebody could maybe alleviate their body image issues with posting a photograph, and then getting some comments and all these sort of likes, etc. And that becomes the ailment to the self-esteem issue. But is it an issue that long term this social media presence has to be constant in order for them to stay in this high self-esteem? I'm just wondering what you would think around that.
Yeah. I don't know how it is over there, but are you familiar with Instagram?
Yeah.
So there's all these the Instagram models, the IG models, right? That they're there's one popping up every day, right? And so both male and female.
Yeah.
And as far as on the female side, right? They see these models on there, and honestly, like, this was going on. I mean, 30, 40. I mean, to the beginning of time. Just not as prevalent. I mean, you think back, like, as far as the males go, think back to Schwarzenegger, Arnold. Okay, everyone wanted to be like him. Everyone wanted to be like Lou Ferrigno, the Hulk, right? But it wasn't as impactful because social media wasn't around that time. You had like TV and stuff, right? Movies. But now you have the social media where, I mean, you can really just search anyone or something will come up as an advertisement. Buy my weight loss product and you'll look like me, right? And that's all over the place, right? And that's why it's important, to be critical thinkers, to be able to decipher what's legitimate and what's not. And I think that's why there's so many different like supplements, weight loss supplements that people are buying, all these quick fixes, right? Because they want, because both men and women, as you said, they want to look, and again, as I said in the beginning, they want to look and compare themselves to other people, like celebrities, if they're athletes, athletes in their sport. They want to perform a certain way, perform like an athlete at the major, at the professional level, if they're not there already. And so this is why, people, athletes, men, women, whomever, they want those quick fixes, whether it's supplements, performance enhancing substances, because that's what it is. And social media just kind of puts all that out there for us, and it makes it more accessible to these people. And like you said, there's definitely benefits to social media, but subconsciously it does impact people. And this is why, I know for a fact how it is here. So many people will take different supplements to lose weight quick, right? We see it on TV all the time. There are these different advertisements. Take this pill and you'll lose 20 pounds in a week, right? And of course, they don't talk about the diet or exercise, right? But they say, look, you look like me. Of course, they're going to have a shredded person on there selling their product, right? And so, but people buy into this because they believe it. They want to believe it, and they want that quick fix. They want to look like that person they saw on Instagram, quick, right? Because again, a lot of people, they don't like that delayed gratification. They want it quick. They want it right now, right? Whatever it takes, and they rather not have to go through the grind of going to the gym, eating healthy, that kind of thing. They rather, just take a pill, take a magic pill, and make it all go away, right?
What's really concerned, like for me, is you touched on like your PEDs as well, and this frightens me. Genuinely frightens me. It's like all of a sudden there's an abundance of them in the country, especially in Britain, because laws in America are a little bit more stringent, but here it isn't illegal to possess them. It's just illegal to purchase them. So I think that's something that needs to kind of be ironed out in that. So what's happening is now is younger kids are being exposed to social media and seeing people that they want to look like and mimic. And they'll do more research. Again, they've got all this research at their fingertips. They'll do more research on the quick fix pills and the performance enhancing side than they will on the nutrition. So what really concerns us is I've had like brief discussions about it with some of my learners as well. It's all part of their like personal social development, having like drug awareness and stuff like that. And instead of having this sort of old-fashioned dinosaur approach where don't take drugs, they're bad for you, without educating them purposely like what it is, so breaking it down what a stimulant is, coffee, etc., etc. And they will know more about compounds in esters, in anabolics, but they will not be able to tell you the difference between a refined and a complex carbohydrate.
Yeah.
And it completely like baffles us. Now I don't know if that's because it's not as interesting, all right, to them at the age they're at. Again, they're like that, they're 16, 17-year-old kids. They don't want to talk about how carbohydrates are broke down. They don't want to talk about their glycogen stores. They don't care about that. Protein synthesis is irrelevant to them. I don't care what glutamine does. I don't care about BCAAs. But I'll read this. I'm wondering, in where you're from, is that there, especially in like California, Los Angeles, is renowned for the Venice Beach look? Is that more prevalent where you are? Because it's massive where we are currently.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, everyone wants to have that body, the Venice Beach body, right? Men and women. I really feel, it's gone are the days of, if you're skinny, you're sexy, right? Now at least over here, it's more about fit, right? Everyone wants to be fit, right? Especially with men, right? You want the big muscles, right? This and that. But yeah, you're right. There is definitely an abundance of PED use, and of course, anyone who's taking it, PEDs, they're assuming, they're not going to get caught. Say they're an athlete. If they're not an athlete, they don't have to worry about it. At least over here, I mean, I'm sure, and it sounds like over there too, because again, they want that quick fix, and like you said, they would rather spend time, looking up, because PEDs are a little bit more sexier, if you want to call it that, because it's all over the news, all over social media. These people are getting big this way. But they got caught. In their head, I won't get caught, right? And so, if they are an athlete who gets tested, otherwise, if they're not getting tested, like why not, right? In their head, why not? And they'll take that risk, and rather than looking at what you're talking about as far as understanding the complexities of nutrition, right? Of how and how that can be beneficial for them long term, whereas PEDs can be maybe a short term gain, but potentially long term risk. And so, and you brought up a great point in how important awareness is, right? And I used to tell the guys I used to coach, like, listen, I can't be there to hold your hand every day to tell you don't take these drugs, don't drink, this and that. What I will do is describe what these substances are that are out there and prevalent, especially at the high school level, and what they can do to you, and how they can affect you. So and I tell them, like, listen, like, if you're going to partake in this stuff, I can't be there every second to stop you. So at the very least, I want to make you aware of the effects that these have and how they can potentially hurt you, and you make that decision on your own. Right, because again, I mean, we could always say don't take drugs, right? But as you said, don't do drugs. Say no to drugs. But at the end of the day, I mean, people were still taking them. So, and a lot of times they don't understand the specific effects that they might have. Especially the negative effects.
I know parents are very like we want to protect our kids. So we put them in the house, we wrap them in cotton wool, we tell them don't do this, we don't do that. And I understand from that angle why we're doing that. But also as well, I don't know how you feel about it, but I feel like the next generation, so from the millennials, we've got the Generation Z now. Especially in education, when me and Chris work, we're seeing like higher rates of like anxiety, higher rates of depression that are coming from it as well. Now, I don't know if there's a link between that and the way that they look, but there seems to be a link between it and then how they feel as well. So touching on something a little bit bigger as well is like, should we not be within our curriculum, I don't know, educating them a little bit more efficiently, a little bit effectively about that? Or is that just buzzwords that they're throwing around currently? As in, I feel low, or I must be depressed, I feel a little bit nervous, so therefore I must be anxious. Or why anxiety or feeling anxious has this negative link to it. Like, I always seen being anxious is a good thing. Like, anxiety keeps you sharp. And boxers will say, if I'm not anxious before I walk to the ring, there's something wrong. I need to feel that fear. But of course, you're just about to get hit in the face for potentially 36 minutes. You should be anxious. Like, before a big game, if you've got your American football teams, they should be anxious because they want to win. So I don't know. I'm interested to see whether over where you are, if you're seeing that as well, like higher rates of anxiety or depression or mental health that's coming through there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it is pretty prevalent over here, especially at the adolescent level, where there is anxiety and depression. Because again, that is a very sensitive time in their lives, right? And they're trying to figure out who they are, and so it can be from a different a wide array of reasons why they're getting anxious or depressed. But yeah, they might feel depressed. It could be as simple as like a breakup, right? They have a high school sweetheart that broke up with them, and it's like the end of the world, right? It happens, right? I mean, it's like puppy love, but to them, it's the end of the world, and so it's important for us as practitioners to understand, put ourselves in their shoes, instead of just kind of brushing it off, like, oh, you'll be all right. But these kids are actually going through stuff.
Yeah.
And one thing that a project that I'm working on is to help with implementing a mental skills program, I guess you can call it, within the school system early on. And I'm talking about starting at the elementary school level. Elementary school goes to about fifth grade here. Then we have middle school, then high school. Having some sort of program at each level, elementary, middle school, high school, and teach them mental skills, how to cope with adversity, because damn well they're going to go through adverse situations. And so it's a lot of kids growing up, they don't know how to do it. And so that's when they start partaking in drugs, they get depressed, they do certain activities. But I feel that by teaching them the skills to cope with adversity, to cope with, anxiety, if they start feeling anxious for any reason, whatever it is, teaching them those skills at every level, by the time they leave high school and enter the real world, or whether it's going to college or getting a job, they are equipped with them. And that kind of goes along with the whole stigma of mental health. I'm not sure how it is over there, but it's slowly getting better here. Yeah. There's a lot of work to be done, but people are starting to talk about it, and which I love. I love the fact that we have celebrities now, pro athletes, like Dwayne Johnson, Michael Phelps, people like that just coming out and talking about their battles with mental health. And what that does is, and again, the positive use of social media here is that it gets that out, the positive message, like, hey, like, we're just like you guys, and we go through our troubles too, because there is this misconception that, celebrities, athletes, they're like superhumans, and like, oh, like, they have a bunch of money, like, what do they have to worry about? Like, no, they go through stuff, right? And they're just like you and me. And so I really feel that, when celebrities like that, they use their platform to talk about that helps so much, because especially with adolescents, but adults as well, to see, these people that they look up to, see that, hey, they're just a normal person, and they said, hey, it's okay to go get help. It's okay to talk to someone about whatever it is that you're going through. And that's why I feel we're, as a society, at least here, we are doing a better job of at least talking about it. And that's the first step, talking about it and raising awareness. And then, going from there, now we're starting to get rid of that stigma that is seeking mental help. to be able to say it's okay to go talk about your issues. And I tell my clients, my students, whether you have an issue, big or small, talk about it. It's like if you go to your physician, if you have a cold or a flu, sometimes we have mental colds, mental flus, right? And so that's when you go to a practitioner to fix it. And that's how normal it should be. I really feel it will be at some point down the line. To the point where, anytime we have an issue going on, whether it's small, significant, or in between, we can just go and talk to a psychologist, therapist, work it out, and then move along and have a better life from there. So I really feel that stuff and is definitely getting better. Again, still a lot of work to be had, a lot of people and celebrities utilizing their platforms, but we're on the right path.
It's great that you said that as well, because it corresponds with me and Chris were talking about like a recent study by Jonathan, was it Haidt?
Is it Jonathan Haidt or Jonathan Haidt?
He's a professor at the New York University, and he's looked into the increased rates of depression, self-harm, and suicide. And basically, to cut along, I don't want to bore you with statistics and stuff, but to cut a long story short, what he's found now is, especially with Generation Z, so anyone from 1995 onwards, who were the ones we're starting to see in college, or we see in our degree programs now, females, for instance, have got a 28% rise in they're more likely to have self-harmed or had what they call a depressed episode within that year. So your program that you're putting together now couldn't come quick enough, in my opinion, after reading that study. And that's the first quantifiable bit of data we've got where we can highlight what is happening here. So there's a rise in teen lads who are committing suicide, and there's a rise in females who are committing self-harm. Now the millennials on the data, they just fluctuate through the 90s and through the 2000s. It's not until the Generation Z kick in later on. So born 95, yes, Facebook created 2004. It was a 9 or 10. By the time they get through the middle school, through into high school, to the data that we've got now, there's a direct correlation between the birth of social media with Facebook, with Instagram and Twitter, to where these are in college now. In comparison to millennials, the data is unbelievable, and like the increase in it, that it's there. So these programs, what you're talking about, in my opinion, are essential to the kids' curriculum and should be implemented at a younger age and discussed and highlighted, so that it also helps that soft skills, having a conversation as well. That seems to be a dying art with them. They're great at creating these emojis and stuff like that, and acronym words that I have no idea what they mean to text each other and speak, right?
Yeah.
But having a conversation with them is a little bit wooden sometimes. With it, some programs like that would be really beneficial to do it, and I hope that maybe one day they'll roll it out. Yeah, you'll have to keep us posted on how well that goes as well.
Yeah, definitely. And I would agree. I think across here, I think it's fantastic. I think in recent years, people have really opened up about mental health, and I think at all points in our life, we've all felt some form of mental health issue or problem. I've certainly been in some dark places. I can open up and be honest about that. But yeah, I think over here it's starting to become a lot more aware. People are discussing their issues, which I think is a fantastic thing. And I fully agree with you in terms of one of the positive things about social media is that we all have access to something we can relate to. So it may be an issue that you don't want to say because it's insignificant, and then you go on and you see that a celebrity or somebody else, it doesn't have to be a celebrity, has spoke about that same thing, and that instant connection then can allow them to build a platform maybe to move forward. And I heard a really good quote regarding social media, and I think the thing that you're doing, I think is fantastic, and I hope that we can maybe try and we'll not take your word, of course, we wouldn't do that. But try and establish some framework that we could maybe roll out here, because I think what we what I tend to see is that if we can educate, even the millennials, and even the generation from 95 onwards, is to use social media. Don't let social media use you. I think we could maybe alleviate a lot of these problems that could maybe come from, I need to look a certain way, I have to do X, Y, and Z, which ultimately probably will make them go for that. I wanted it yesterday, and not appreciating, the grind as such. And I think that's something that we could really work on, because there is positive things moving forward in this country regarding mental health. And I think designing platforms or developing something in the curriculum definitely would allow us to move forward and maybe get people to understand that social media is there to be used. Yeah, it's not there to consume and use you. I mean, an example could be, I don't know what it's like in the US, but here, especially the generation we have, is energy drinks. And they're massive. And I'll ask a question and I'll say to a student, "Oh, why have you got that?" I don't know. I've seen it on social media. Yeah. Is it that we need to develop them skills in order? And it is that critical mindset. And I try my best with a subject called research methods that we roll out in higher education here, which kids hate because they can't connect research methods to their vocation. It's only until level 6 where they're doing their dissertation. Oh dear, yeah, I need to understand research methods. But if we can get them to think critically and think, right, okay, this person has this particular image and they've got there through this. I think it goes back again to what we were discussing earlier, but definitely I think a way to use social media would be, right, okay, who's an influential member in nutrition? Go and find a professor, a doctor, and people like yourself. I mean, look at what we're doing here. To have someone like yourself, powerful to be able to speak to. Now, I know that you would probably answer somebody who asked you a question around psychology. Why is it that? Yeah, do you know what I mean? If we can teach people to maybe do that, but is it maybe the fear of, oh, well, actually, he's a professor, I don't particularly want to go there? Then I don't know if that's something that we can definitely or try and alleviate. But I do see, I do see some positives coming from social media and what we can do as practitioners in order to really try and harness, because it isn't going to be done tomorrow. It's going to be done over time. But really teach kids how to use social media as opposed to it being consuming them and dragging them into this. I can't dare say a virtual reality of this is how to look. Yeah, it might be that's how you look there, but in reality, let's like you said at the beginning of this talk, let's really embrace ourselves and try and develop ourselves the best we possibly can to be what we would deem successful in life. I would agree with that.
Yeah, and as I mentioned, being a critical thinker is important, and actually, one of the classes that I teach is called Critical Thinking in Psychology, where we teach 16 weeks, and I teach them how to be critical thinkers. And the ones who end up go from start to finish, they tell me it's life changing, because the skills that I teach them, they leave with a gift. They leave with a gift to be able to see the world differently, and to be able to see and not just look at an advertisement or a post on social media and just buy into it right away without questioning it, without deconstructing whatever claim it is, right? And so those critical thinking skills are important, right? Because we're exposed to all this stuff, whether it's television, social media, the radio, whatever, magazines, newspaper, that kind of thing. And so it's important to be informed and having these skills and understanding that even like authority figures that are around us, now they're not right 100% of the time, right? Yeah. Even like doctors, there is something called misdiagnosis, right? and so just being able to understand that even authority figures, we a lot of us, we grow up not to question them, right? And don't question whoever they might be. But it is important to question, obviously respectfully, if they are a legitimate authority figure, and just to be able to understand even like both sides of the argument. Whether it's like in politics. I'm sure you guys hear plenty about all the politics going on over here, right? But like I mean, I haven't seen we a lot of us are divided over here. I mean, a lot of people that I've seen are very divided, very polarized. And so that's why I urge my students to play the middle, right? Play the middle and have an independent thought, independent stance, hear both sides, and then make your decision. But there's a lot of people who like to conform, right, and be a part of the norm, right? And that social media plays right into that, to where they want to do what's in, they want to do what's popular, or what their family and friends were doing, instead of having an original thought, an independent thought, and being okay with having with being the outsider, being a part of the minority as far as doing something or not doing something. And so, but I really feel like having those skills and being able to, look and be able to be exposed to social media and say, oh, it's not for me, or, maybe I should question this before I buy into it, that kind of thing. Because social media isn't going anywhere, right? I mean, we could complain about it, left or right, but it's not going anywhere. So instead, like, let's figure out a way that we can utilize this positively and effectively, especially for the adolescents who are, as I mentioned, very vulnerable to suggestion, to, swaying left or right, because again, they're trying to find themselves, and obviously they're looking at social media and they're seeing, oh, this is in, or I want to be like this guy or girl, so having those skills are important too.
It's and for me as well, it's like on your social media, there's especially Instagram, you get that magic blue tick. If you get the blue tick, you're supposed to be a established person.
Yeah.
Oh, we need to listen to this guy. He's got this blue tick. Like, I don't know what the blue tick means. I've surmised it's to do with followers. But how does it, for people in your position, who've done the research, who've become doctors, who've done the grind, so to speak, that they will listen to, I don't know, see Zac Efron, how to get abs like Zac Efron in 6 weeks, and he's put a training program together. But the person who's done the training with him or done the diet for him doesn't seem to get the same recognition. And this goes for boxers as well, or your mixed martial artists is massive as well at the minute, where people are moving up and down weight scales. There's only your George Lockharts who I've even heard of, but there's all these fighters who go to different strength and conditioning coaches and different nutritionists. They just don't seem to get the advertisement or the marketing for it. So maybe it's a case of the people who are using these people to try and advertise the people who are helping them a little bit more as well. So the kids don't look and say, if I want to look like The Rock, right, this is what I'll just listen to The Rock. Maybe The Rock could potentially start pushing it to say, okay, I've got this person here, this is what he helps with, a little bit more transparency as well. Because it's not just person, there's an amalgamation of people who have all helped each athlete get to where they want to be. I think that's missing in the minute as well. People like yourself will not get the same recognition working with the athletes as what the athletes would get if they are successful. I think that's what needs to be put in as well.
Yeah, and again, that's why I feel, anytime, celebrities use their platforms to help people in any way, whether it's talking about mental health, or talking about the specifics as far as how they gain muscle or lost weight, right? Because you're right. You can go on and say, "Oh, I want to look like him. I want to get a 6-pack, and let's see what he's doing, or see what she's eating, whatever it is." But there's so many different variables involved that people don't realize, right? It's not that they're just eating quote unquote clean. I mean, they might have a personal trainer, they might have a professional they're working with. I mean, there's some. I mean, as you guys know, you guys are professionals in this. As far as nutrition goes, there's so many different factors that are involved that people don't take into account, right? They just think, okay, I'm gonna, eat a salad every day, every meal, and I'm gonna look like that, or work out for 5 hours a day, and I'm gonna look like that. There's so much more involved in that, not just, and as you guys know, so definitely.
They even seem to negate just even the sleep. It's simple things like the importance of actually sleeping or the timing of food. Like I know, like fasting's a little bit of a fad, I think, at the minute. I know I've read stuff saying that there is positives to it and what it can do. But the old sort of eating 2 hours frequently to put muscle tissue on and stuff, I think is kind of weaving away a little bit from it. Some people are different, respond differently to that. But it's the lack of understanding of where the food comes and what the food does and what its purpose or function is. That's what kind of, no matter how much you break it down for them, I think it needs to be, I think nutrition for me should be a compulsory unit or a compulsory lesson they have to do. So I know you have to do American history or something like that. It's part of it. If you don't do it, you will not graduate. Like, I think that should be a part of our curriculum from our secondary schools, which is 11 up to 16. Like, if you want to leave here, like, this is what you will get, or this could have an impact on your English, your maths, your sciences and stuff like that. And there's loads of situations to put it in. We teach biology. Like, why can't we fit nutrition into biology? They go hand in hand, and I don't understand. It's like little wins. I think the kids would see the benefit to what nutrition can do. Anything from growing muscle tissue to just brain function. Like, I don't know about you, but have you ever tried to have a couple of days with no carbohydrates? Like, you know, my peripheral vision goes and I'm not very sharp, you know, at all. I constantly feel tired. So I want the kids to understand why is that actually happening and what is it we can get from that.
Yeah, and that'll be, you know, as I mentioned, as far as like, you know, implementing a required mental skills program within the curriculum at all different levels. I mean, you hit it on the point. I really feel having a nutritional class as part of the curriculum or required class is definitely important. And, you know, and that goes into the whole debate. I mean, the whole argument as far as like, why aren't we, at least here, teaching more life skills, more applicable skills that, you know, kids need after they leave high school. I mean, I rather know, like, you know, I rather know about, you know, nutrition and all the details rather than dissecting a frog. Like, you know, it's, I mean, you know, it's cool and everything, right? But what are really, I mean, if that's what you want to do as a career, you know, go do that in college. But I mean, this, you know, stuff like nutrition, mental health, you know, that's stuff that we're gonna need like immediately, you know, and that's why, you know, and we see the flux of, you know, obesity rates, at least here, and just some, you know, cardiovascular issues, and you know, and going back to the whole, you know, the diets and like the big trendy diet right now is the keto diet, right? And so everyone's doing the keto. Everyone's doing the keto, man. Like, you know, and they're just depriving themselves so much of carbs whatsoever. You know, and you know, of course, you know, there's certain, as you guys know, there's certain ways to do to, you know, what to put in your body, but it's having that awareness. But people don't go with whatever's in. And right now, the fad diet is keto, right? And so, you know, and some people are losing weight, and of course, that's going to condition that belief, like, oh, this works. I'm going to do that too, right? Against social media, right? They see this stuff on social media, to where they completely cut out carbs like every day, right? I mean, you know, there's some long-term effects there, as you guys know. And so, and, you know, there's stuff, and this goes back to being a critical thinker and seeing all these different products that are pushed to us. You know, there was one thing before, like this fit tea that everyone bought, you know, like, drink this tea, you're going to lose a bunch of weight.
That's one of my pet hates is the detox diet, and it's like, no, it doesn't work, it doesn't happen. But I definitely agree, because one thing, well, across here in the UK, actually the title nutritionist isn't protected. So anybody can call themselves a nutritionist, whether, you know, you're a postdoctorate, whether you're a professor, or whether you've just done an A-level. We can all call ourselves a nutritionist. And then obviously with the, you know, with income, social media, there's a minefield of information out there. So I would definitely agree. One thing I've never got my head around is actually one of the things that's essential to life and well-being isn't mandatory in the curriculum from what would be kindergarten to you up until leaving university. I've never been able to get my head around that. I don't know why that is, but I certainly, from my standpoint, I got thrown in the deep end as such in pro boxing, and got asked if I would work with a boxer, and I couldn't get my head around. Okay, I've found out what it is you're doing with your S&C coach. I know what you're doing in terms of your boxing training. Here is a nutrition strategy. And then when he was getting on the scales and we're doing body composition readings, and I'm like, Jesus Christ, this hasn't worked. Like, why? Why has this not worked? And I think I was a product of society and how to think. I give you X, so you should actually come out with Y. And then when I came back out with A, B, C, X and D, and not wondering why, that's when really that critical mindset it sort of come in. I really understood there's more to this than actually my scientific knowledge, and it really was the power of psychology, because we have a relationship with food. We do. We have it because we have to survive, and it's in every realm of society. Me and Ben might go for something to eat after here. It's nutrition. Yeah, we have a business meeting. It tends to be maybe something to eat, etc. So there is a relationship there, and I think there is that disconnect. And whether it's a direct result of social media or not, I don't know. But there is a disconnect, I think, with that relationship as to, I want to look like this, but I don't understand any of the concepts that lead up to that. I just know that if I go and take this pill or I have this shake, I'm going to lose a lot of weight, which brings on, I think, or what's maybe is already there, the mental effects of, oh, it didn't work. And that's certainly, in a professional sense, in boxing, you can imagine how a boxer or an MMA fighter or any weight category sport, if you have said, well, actually, this is where we want to be by week 5 of camp, and they're not there, we can ruin the camp. But mentally, we don't know what's happening there. I think that's something that I think we as definitely as practitioners in education can sort of, we don't want to say, sneak it in there without the principalship known, but we can certainly enhance those critical thinking skills. And when we talk about or teaching certain aspects of nutrition or physiology or biology, we can certainly link it in there. I mean, I do, just because of the nature of my background. When I'm teaching anatomy and physiology or human physiology, I use nutrition examples, but I also allow them to understand that, we have the same systems as human beings, but we have a different DNA transcription and endocrine system, in that my endocrine system doesn't work the same as Ben's in any given situation. And I think really that we could really build that from having it from kindergarten or reception, as we call it, that level, right through to the end of university. It doesn't mean that your engineers need to understand massive or in-depth physiology. I'm not saying that. I think, but we can certainly embed things in mandatory education in order to give that understanding of those critical skills. So when they do go onto social media, they can actually look and then go, however, I've read this by such and such, and actually do an analysis of the literature and come up with that informed, practical decision. And I think you're definitely right that that's something that we could definitely establish. I think maybe, I can't speak for across in the US, but definitely here in the UK, because I think we could definitely alleviate some of the issues associated with social media with that, because it's such a minefield. And it's great that information's there. It's fantastic that we have access to the world's information. But unfortunately, if we aren't skilled enough to understand or decipher what's right and what's wrong, then we are going to continue with this problem. And I think you're right. Social media isn't going anywhere. It's going to get bigger. It's going to get bigger. And then these issues are going to get bigger, bigger and bigger. And then it becomes such a task that maybe is fighting a losing battle for people like ourselves in education and other professionals who are out in the field to try and really tackle those issues. And I don't know what you think about this, but I feel that there's a lot the human interaction or that disconnect from human development seems to be happening, because I can't imagine a lot of people sitting down and discussing things like what me and Ben do at the end of the day. It's, at any given opportunity, boom, what's on there. And I've even spoken to some people who are just like, I just look and scroll. 9 times out of 10, I've spoken to one girl, and she was like, oh, I don't actually read anything. I just scroll and scroll and scroll. It's become habitual. Right, yeah, I'm sort of seeing where that can lead to that disconnect of that human behaviour. And do you think that could actually hamper us developing as humans? Do you think that we could ultimately be going backwards? And I'll go back to what Ben and yourself were talking about before, where kids are fantastic at using emojis and pictorial forms to communicate. I mean, the Sumerians and the Egyptians were doing that. Are we going backwards to a point where we're going to communicate literally through pictorial forms and sketches? Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, I see it all the time. And just me being the psychologist and loving human behavior, I'm always people watching, and even, a perfect example, I was at a red light, I was driving, and I see this in adults too, and only kids. I see, but it was 2 adolescents. Look like they're coming from school. They're crossing the street, about to cross each other's paths, and they're looking up. All of a sudden, as soon as they get close, they get to their phone. So what I think it is, it's like a safe zone, to where and even adults. I mean, I walk into an elevator, instead of saying hi or engaging in conversation, they look on their phones. Right, I know a lot of us are guilty of that. Instead of and I really feel like our social skills are being slowly taken away, especially for these younger generations that are given these phones earlier and earlier. And to where their social skills are not great at all. And I've seen this at the high school level. I've seen even at the college level. And I'm telling them, like, get off your phone. Let's talk. Let's have a conversation. But yeah, I mean, I've even seen like TV shows. I'm not sure if you heard of Black Mirror. It's a show on Netflix.
Yeah.
And there was like one of the episodes. It showed, because all those episodes were talking about things that might happen in the future. One of those, shows everyone is just looking down on their phone, and if we don't do something, I really feel that's where it's going to go. And unfortunately, that's what it is. And where people are so used to texting, people don't like calling anymore, right? They rather text you than call you. And there's so you can't get tone, you can't get just feeling from texting, and there's a lot of misinterpretations from texting, right? You might be texting someone or messaging someone, and they might take it a different way than what you originally intended. And so there's so many different things that that our technology, although it's great, it's affecting us negatively. And I see that a lot with adolescents, and even when just sitting down one-on-one, with a student, a younger student, you can see that just engaging in small talk is difficult for them. Right. And just having a conversation, because they're not used to that. They're used to talking to their friends on social media. Or texting them. And so I've definitely seen that.
So like 2 things about. So I went for a meal recently with my better half, and when we sat down, there was a young couple to our left, around about, I'd say about 18, 19. So they should be quite passionate, well into each other. The food comes, and they're playing on their phones, so it's just silent. So like the conversation, even between a couple, like is dying. Now, if they were 60 or 70 and had been together for 40, 50 years, I totally understand. Maybe a bit of silence and some food is what they need, but not at 18, 19, where like you should be passionate, you should be excited. You should that seems to be like that's gone for them as well. But one of the impacts, I'd love to know if it has got a direct impact on this. I don't know what you think about it, but we're seeing some of our kids are coming in with really lower literacy and numeracy skills, but specifically literacy.
Yeah.
And the text speak jargon that they use, I think, is having a detrimental impact on their spelling. That simplistic spelling, and we're all guilty of it, I do this, the spell check that we kind of lean on as well, especially when we've done assignments and you're trying to get any of your research down. The amount of times I've probably misspelled something, and the magical spell check is just put it right for us. But I'm not learning how to spell that word, and I think that for them, they're getting into this routine of, the whole see you, all right, instead of, actually see you, is now leading into that English, into that language, especially that spelling. And then they don't want to admit that they spelled something wrong because of that fear and that anxiety of being a failure or getting something wrong or being like labeled as dumb or thick or whatever it is. But the texting really concerns, especially with that English levels as well. I'm not too sure how you feel about it or how it happened in the US as well. Is this something that you're seeing?
Yeah, I mean, even at the college level, I'm reading my students' papers, and some of them, they'll have, they'll have the text writing, right, and it'll be you are, that kind of thing, and we see that like people like they might not know the difference between the yours and the theirs, right, and that kind of goes along with it, and. And going back to that couple, sitting out to dinner, I see that all the time too, and I tell my fiance, like, they'll never be us. Like, I don't care. Like, we're gonna put our phones away. Like, no, like, we're not gonna get to that point. So we're both pretty good about it. But yeah, I see it all the time. But yeah, I definitely agree that it's affecting people's ability to understand grammar. Understand spelling, and a lot of times they're not. I mean, I don't know about over there, but I don't see too many people, at least the younger generations, reading books as much anymore.
No.
Just reading, you don't see that, right? They're looking on their phone, looking on social media, looking on TMZ, whatever it is, and instead of picking up a book and just reading it and expanding their minds and vocabulary, that kind of thing too.
I try to use social media in like a positive light once or just even phones, I should say, not specifically social media. But there were any of my kids that were struggling to find any academic journals. So, I can't find a journal on that. You just haven't looked, okay? But I've said to them, why not use podcasts or why not use some social media to find academics and see what they're talking about and then let that lead you down the journey? So if they're having a conversation via a podcast about a topic that you're writing about, there's your starting point. So use it to enable you to go, right, okay, so I need to read more journals about what this person's had. And 9 times out of 10, during the conversation, they'll bring up other studies to discuss. So it's like that could be used as that starting point, so to speak. Instead of them, what they see is, I don't want to go to the library, I'm not trolling through books. That's something you've done in the 80s and 90s. I'm not doing that anymore. But trying to get them to use podcasts with academics who are having conversations, just similar conversations like this, as a base for them to say that as well start my research for what I'm trying to do, and maybe getting them more engaged that way.
Yeah, I mean, again, like the great thing about technology is having those different things that we have available, like just such as podcasts. Over here in LA, we have a terrible thing with traffic, right? And so I'll throw in a podcast and just listen. Like I love Tony Robbins, so I'll listen to his stuff, and just learn. Or like I'm learning Spanish, and so I'll throw in there's a Spanish thing, to where I'm sitting in my car in traffic and using my time wisely. But yeah, so there's so many different things they can use. But yeah, definitely, utilizing that technology, and I tell them, like, guys, you don't understand how much information is at the tips of our fingers. I mean, anything you want to do, anything you want to know is there. You want to learn how to cook, YouTube. I mean, YouTube is such a powerful tool that people don't really use as much as effectively. and just in using it, and then going from, and then using it, as you mentioned, as a foundation, and then doing their research, whatever they have to do. But yeah, it's like it's shocking how so much technology is available for us, so much information, but it seemed to make people a little bit lazier in a way. Like it's interesting how that works.
Yeah, I think one of the things that a great point that you and Ben touched on there was the interpretation. So when we go back to this text speech, how students are now writing, and some of my level 6 students, just about to graduate, have actually spoken in that sense. And I think because of that disconnect from that human interaction, where we know if I say hello, you can then analyze, my body behavior, my posture, and you can perceive that as that's a welcoming hello, or it can be hello. You'll see that I'm looking rather down, not projecting any positive energy. You'll see that maybe I've got something wrong, or there's something against that. But when we just do hello in a text, it's open to a multitude of interpretations. That, and I don't know what you think, and I hope you can clarify this, because this is what my opinion, and obviously I'm not a psychologist, so I can't then comment. But they're then taking that interpretation and not having an understanding. So when we are engaging with the student, they then misinterpret what's being said, and they can take that the wrong way. And I think what's happening over time is that they are maybe misconstruing what's actually being said. And that, I don't know what you think, do you think that could be because of that lack of human interaction? Because they're just writing, and they can write a paragraph and the grammar isn't exactly fantastic, which is then leading someone to be like, whoa, hang on a minute, why have you said that? And some of that built up sort of resent, I think, towards when they then say, well, actually he said this, but that's not exactly what was said there, but that's transferring into some of the work. And I think when then when we go and we ask our students to then be critical thinkers, and they find this information on social media, because they haven't got them interpretation skills, they are just then, and I spoke about this on a podcast the other evening, beyond the p-value, because they just go, boom, p-value, significant difference, and they don't interpret what the information is actually said. And I think that's one of the key reasons, I think, that we find ourselves in the position we're in a practitioner field and in education. That interpretation of, well, they don't know because it's just hello in words, that can be interpreted a million different ways. And then obviously come to the research side of things, and life skills as well, by the way. The interpretation of that is very, I think, vague now. So when you talk this to students, and I talk to potential practitioners, and I say, you know what, you've graduated now you've got to put the miles in, now you've got to then go and enhance your interpersonal skills, and they look at you and say, what do you mean, what? The person you are, your ability to read an athlete, your ability to read a situation, analyze that information and process it in a way. I think, is social media taking that away from this next generation in order for us to progress? And my personal opinion, I think aspects of that, yeah, of course, we can't say definitively social media is responsible, because we know there's a lot of positives with social media, but I do believe that the two, I'd love to see some research on that, but the two must be correlated in some way, because that's how we are losing that interpretation. It'd be interesting to see what you thought about that, actually, to be fair, Doctor.
Yeah, I mean, and it's something, going back to having those critical thinking skills, understanding that, again, social media is not going anywhere, but if we have the skills and the tools to be able to understand, okay, whatever claim I see, whatever I read, it might not be the full story, or it might not be how I'm interpreting it initially, right? So let me look into it some more. So being able to have that mentality to be able to not just see it and just interpret it and just react right away, having that mentality where, okay, I see the claim, I see the statement, I think I might have interpreted it differently than what it originally was intended, let me look into it some more, or let me clarify. If possible, let me ask the person whoever is making this statement or claim to clarify that, so I know. So again, it's just having the two different mentalities to where, you have someone reading something, say social media, and they interpret it one way and they react a certain way or behave or buy into it, whatever it is, compared to the critical thinker where, they see it, they deconstruct it, they're trying to determine if, okay, did I misinterpret this? Let me find out, let me clarify. And so, again, having the awareness of like, okay, let me look into it some more compared to just looking at it and just reacting right away. It makes a big difference.
And for me as well, like I miss with most of my learners, I always want them just to stay curious. Like always ask questions, like continuously ask questions. There's no such thing as a stupid question. I want them to be inquisitive. I want them to keep digging and going from it. But I feel like the way, it might be similar to what it is like in the US, but the way our education system set up, it's always to get through the next fence or over the next hurdle. So if first of all in primary school, just basically just before your middle school, you need to do a thing called your SATs. So you've got to get high in your SATs, because if you don't get high in your SATs, you're going to go low when you go into secondary education, and that's not going to be very good for you. So kids are pushed to this end goal to get the highest they can in their SATs. Right, I'm all for pulling and stretching the kids, but we all grow and develop at different levels. Then from the SATs they go into secondary education, and the first thing then is right GCSEs. You need to get the highest GCSEs you can, because if you don't, you're not going to get through this. So then the next goal is GCSEs. So when we get the kids after that, they come in with a little bit of like, well, I've done my GCSEs, why do I have to keep working? So why am I still studying? Or why am I still working as hard now? And it's like, well, no, the next step is you're collecting information on your journey. That is it. So like you said before, I'm starting to learn Spanish. Like, if I propose that to some of my learners, they would be like, why are you doing that? I was like, well, why not? Yeah, I know, but why are you doing that? Do you need it for anything? It has to have a purpose for them in their little world. And if it's not important, they don't see the importance of learning it.
Yeah.
So why do I need to learn how to cook like this? So, Ben, why do I need to know what the difference between these carbohydrates are? Why do I need to know what calories are in protein as opposed to carbohydrates and fats? I don't need to know it. And it's ironic that you do, I think it's home eco, so you teach them how to cook, right? And we do cooking and cookery, so we teach them how to cook as well, but we don't tell them about what's in the food. Yeah. We just tell them how to cook it as well. So my first one for you is, do you feel like it's the same where you need to graduate from grade 5 to grade 6, so grade 6 to grade 7? Because if you don't pass this, you'll end up dying old and alone. And that's what I feel like sometimes it is for them, that they've always got to get to that little next step. Instead of just knowing that on a journey where they're continuously curious and asking questions and being critically thinking and having that critical head on, if you like, to always question, well, why is this then? Okay, so what does this mean? Or going away and bringing something back to say, guess what I read last night? Or what was it? I read about this or I read about that. It doesn't seem to be happening as much. But to tell you what's going on in TMZ or World Star Hip Hop or like that, they could do it. But I don't think this. I'm not all of them. There's a portion that do. But I'd like to hopefully think we can keep them curious all the way through from that. I'm not sure. Do you get that in the US as well, where kids feel it's like more like a finish line that they've got to get to?
Yeah, and we also have, the standardized testing over here at the elementary school or primary school over there, middle school and high school levels. I really feel it starts from the top down, starting from the administration and teachers. The problem that I'm seeing, and I know a lot of teachers they agree with me in that lot of the curriculum, a lot of what the teachers are told to be teaching is geared towards passing a test. Okay?
That was actually my next question. That was brilliant.
Yeah. Instead of teaching things and showing the value of what they're teaching, they're teaching to pass a test to move them along, right? Because a lot of even for instance, a lot of the money that schools get, the recognition is based upon test scores, right? It's based upon those standardized test scores, and so it's kind of and we're seeing teachers doing this, and it's kind of trickling down to the students where they're becoming more outcome oriented, have an outcome oriented mentality to where, okay, pass the test and that's it. Now understanding the importance of actually just being engaged in classes and having and getting value out of every day, and learning something new every day, rather than having to just go through the grind and just dread it every day just to pass a test. And and for a while over here in California, they had what's called the California High School Exit Exam, to where you can't graduate high school unless you pass this test. And a lot of teachers were finding they were teaching to make sure that the kids pass their test. And and it just goes to show how like a test can just by putting so much weight on an examination and test can have detrimental effects. And so that's why and again, goes back to the whole debate as far as why aren't we teaching more life skills compared to like there's kids over here that don't know how to do a percentage or how to do certain basic math that they'll use in the real world. Compared to certain math that like, are they going to use this? And so there's a debate on that. Even like cooking, I don't see that anymore here. They don't have how to cook. They don't have at least I've worked around different school districts in the area, and you don't see the cooking and the woodworking as you used to. Even when I was in school, they saw the woodworking, but you don't see that as much. And I think I really feel that that's a either direct or indirect effect of those testing, where everything is geared towards passing these tests, right? And so, I definitely see that.
And I have a negative. The passing of the test just teaches them how to pass the test. And the skills they would acquire just by learning about a topic is so much more transferable into employment. So if you focused on the life skills and you focused on the critical thinking, if they're in a new job and they're given a task they don't fully understand, they'll be more confident to ask or break it down, and they'll have more confidence to go away and think about how they're going to do the task before they come back. But by giving them a test, you just condition them for the test as well. So driving test is a perfect example. Like, I passed my driving test, but I couldn't tell you what some of the road signs mean. I know traffic lights, they're all right, and a roundabout, I'm okay with that. But some of them, I don't know. But at the time, when I passed it, I knew enough to be good enough to go on the road. So I think it's trying to instill in them that they're always going to be continuously developing, regardless what they go into. Even if they go into a job that's in a factory where they punch a card 9 to 5, it's still important for them as people, like, to socially still be asking questions, still be thinking critically, still be reading or researching or getting a topic that interests them to keep their brains going, because I think they become a little bit stagnant as well from it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think just. And it's just triggered a thought in my head there, actually. Like, that conditioning, I think, is very prevalent still across here. I mean, dare I say, last year I picked up research methods, which was at the end game an examination. I'll be honest, did I teach to make sure those kids knew what was in that exam? Yeah. Did I allow them the freedom to express themselves and understand that really, and even at the highest level, Doctor, and you would agree with this, I could produce some research and you could argue to me that actually the design that we had in that research, or I chose, maybe wasn't the right way. I didn't allow them to have that freedom. I think that conditioning then transforms into everyday life where, you know, it is that the feared approach. So this is where I think social media can come in, especially with the built environment. I think what actual built environment is understanding how powerful social media is. So they'll try and adopt some of their traits in there. So what I'll say is like one of your big supermarkets, like Walmart in the US, which is Asda in the UK. And I think Walmart own Asda, I think.
Yeah.
So Asda here is your Walmart.
Yeah.
But
Okay,
so, you know, they'll design the app, okay, so you can then literally go on that app, buy the food that you are conditioned to eat or what you do out of habitual traits, instead of going into the supermarket and exploring around and picking up different products. And I think that that's one of those things, again, I try and educate our students around when I'm talking. One of the modules is called community-based healthy eating. So it's more around the community and the environment. And they're absolutely amazed when I tell them, you do know that that big supermarket that you are used to go to, because now you punch it in online, was strategically placed there through scientific research. What? And of course it was. And you know that points card that you've got, where you buy food and you press your card against the card reader and you collect points? That isn't to reward your loyalty, that's to collect information from you and your buying habits. And you'll find that the following month, that depending on the data collated, that your supermarket might have completely changed where foods are in order to see what it is that you're buying. And I think that there's a little bit of a link there between the conditioning that we may be doing that then allows them to go into this world, and that's the conditioned approach. So what I know, or what I'm streamlining through my poor interpretation skills, is then ultimately affecting how I eat, how I behave. You know, I'm guilty. I'm guilty of it. There's a shop just over the road from where I live. Do I have that battle every single time about walking and getting in the car? Yeah, I do. Now, people might think I'm a little bit crazy for that, but I spend 15 minutes going car, walk, get to the car, and I'm walking, and I drive there. So really, not all the time. But yeah, I think we could be restricting, you know, that ability to explore, and I think that can definitely come into their lives from a nutritional standpoint, because they do seem to be, and we are by nature very habitual. And I think as we are moving forward, as technology, you know, really advances, we are maybe going backwards, because if it's easier, then we'll do it that way. And I think that that's what's particularly happening in terms of your nutrition and a health standpoint as well. It's that conditioned mode of, well, this is what I need to know, or this is what I know, and this product sits within that, as opposed to that exploration. I don't know, do you think that there could be some sort of connection with that in terms of if the conditioning really then sets that blueprint for how they develop cognitively in the real world, in the built world? I don't know how you would think about that.
Yeah, I mean, we're conditioned all the time, you know, and to believe certain things and believe what's right, what's wrong, what's, you know, what's effective, what's not, what's sexy, what's not, what's in, what's not. You know, I mean, we're conditioned, and social media plays a big part of that. You know, and especially you see it on social media. Your friends are talking about, oh, you see this on Facebook or Instagram. You know, so that's buying into that. You know, just reinforcing that conditioning. And you know, it's a snowball effect from there, you know, to where, you know, we're conditioned to know what's sexy, what's in, like, as I mentioned, right? You know, that type of body is in, but we are conditioned through that subconsciously through what we see on social media, what we see on TV, you know, and again, we see these advertisements and different posts from people, whether celebrities or not, and you know, it's all about the amount of likes. Whoever has the more followers, whoever has the amount of likes, those are the ones we want to listen to, right? Because they're doing something right in their heads, right? And they're doing something right. So, and what happens is people then they define success based upon things like amount of likes or how many followers they have, that kind of thing, to the point where, if they're not getting the followers, if they're not getting the likes, they fail, and so that's where social media can have, a detrimental effect. And, understanding that's on, you can't say X equals Y, X plus X, X plus Z, or X plus Y equals Z, but, and again, there are definitely great things that we can do, such as, like networking. I mean, LinkedIn, we found each other on LinkedIn, in which, I tell everyone, like, oh, you have no idea the power of LinkedIn. Just networking, networking in general is so important. Especially if you're looking for a job, anything like that. Talk to people, who are in the industry, and there are many people on LinkedIn who are in your industry, right? And so, just seeing that. But yeah, going back to the conditioning, we see certain things that are presented to us, and especially kids, they're vulnerable to seeing, what's in and what's not. And I remember growing up and being conditioned to think, oh, like, back in the day, it was like Pogs. I don't know if you guys had Pogs. Slammer, yeah.
I remember that actually,
yeah, and it's like whoever had the most Pogs, or whoever had the most Slammers, like they were the guy. They were the pro. But we were conditioned to believe that, and it's stuff. Especially kids, they're sitting there watching that TV, and now. We have kids, playing like Fortnite, like young kids playing Fortnite, and I'm not sure if that's like a thing over there, but it's huge over here.
It's massive,
huge,
massive.
Yeah.
I was actually teaching, and I was watching one of my students, rightly or wrongly, depending on the nature of the environment of that particular lecture, like I maybe let it slide a little bit. Anyway, and I was watching the facial expressions of one of my students, and I was like, what on earth is he doing? And he was playing Fortnite on his phone. And I was amazed. I mean, my students, honestly, they can't believe. They're like, what do you mean? Like, you don't watch this, you don't watch that, you're not on social media. And I'm like, no, I don't. Like, but what do you do? I'm like, oh, I read journals about nutrition, or I'm doing, I'm doing a study, so I'm looking into this. And they're like, what? Like, you're joking? No, I'm not. Like, and I'm looked at like I'm the odd one out to an extent. And again, I think it is down to that conditioning. But I do believe that we as practitioners have, I'm not saying that we are the be all and end all, but we spend a lot of time with our kids, and we're in teaching because we care ultimately, because we're not in it for the money. Well, we're definitely not. But we're in there to care, and we can try and definitely instill those things. And I think when you were talking there about the examination process, I think abolishing things like that and being a little bit practical and being practitioner driven, as opposed to, is this group or cohort really the type of kid who learns and develops through an exam, or can we then develop their wider cognitive thinking with, okay, here is a subject, go and explore and develop through a series of maybe, not tight guidelines as such, but guidelines to keep them on track. I think, that could definitely allow us to develop or allow them to develop freely in the outside world, which would definitely, I think, alleviate. I'm not saying we're going to get rid of anything sinister, because with anything, there's good and bad. Unfortunately, that's the way the world works. It shouldn't be like that, but unfortunately, that's the way it is. But I think we can definitely alleviate some of the more sinister things around social media, through the power of education and what we're doing in our institutions, whether we're politically allowed to do that or legislatively. But I definitely think that we have that power and that construct to really give them the skills that could alleviate that. I wonder, do you think that is potentially something you do? Something simple as getting rid of an exam, like I have with research methods. That exam now gone for our level 4, so our first year degree students. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to give them, they're allowed to select a series of either quantitative or qualitative tests and I'm going to give them maybe the design, the data collection methods, and then I want you to tell us some of maybe the variables that could affect that. It allows them to explore, and they can explore and learn in their own way. Do you think that that's maybe is one of the things? I'm not saying that that's it, I've transformed psychology and social media, but things like that, do you think could definitely help with the more sinister side, or allow them to actually be cognitively aware and ultimately enhance critical thinking in order to, when they see something sinister on there, because that does happen, which, you know, it should never happen, I hate it. But, you know, there is some things that get thrown around that's very sinister on social media, to be able to say, well, actually, yeah, I've now got some skills to deal with that, and maybe it's not have so much of an effect on someone's psychology because of that. I wonder, do you think that them are some of the things that you can do? Because if you say no, I'm going to go and change my assessment and change it to something else.
Yeah. No, you know, we have an examination called SATs,
Yeah.
in which many universities require, you know, a high SAT, and they put a lot of weight on that as far as a student trying to apply to attend the university, right?
Yeah.
And so I really feel that there's an issue there, as far as, you know, you are determining the life of someone based upon a test score. And you know, and instead of looking at the whole picture, looking at the big picture and see what value they could bring to the university, rather than, you know, looking at, you know, the grades and, you know, that stuff, but mostly the SAT score, right? Because essentially you're finding out how good of a test taker they are. You know, I mean, there could be someone who's brilliant and someone, you know, who's involved, you know, in extracurriculars and doing great things in the community, but maybe they don't take tests very well. Maybe they get test anxiety, right? They don't look into that stuff, right? And so, and I really feel, you know, at the very least that, you know, examinations such as that should have less of weight on them as far as how, you know, how much of an impact, you know, those test scores can have on someone's success or whatever it is.
Yeah.
You know, and yeah, I you know, and that, you know, and that'll kind of help students kind of not stress and be so anxious about doing well on this on the test, on the SATs, because I need to go to this school. And so they could focus on everything else. Like, okay, like they understand, like, being a well-rounded student, you know, and that'll play into, you know, things like critical thinking. You know, having different skills will essentially help me be a better candidate rather than a simple test score. You know.
Yeah.
I used a test for anatomy and physiology for a lower level group. There were the level ones with, shall we say, they've got a few social issues and they're a little bit boisterous. That's probably the best way to put it. They're a little bit animated at times. They can be a little bit hard to control. But I used it as a summative assessment, so it had no pressure. It didn't mean that they were failing. It was like a checkpoint for them. It was like, right, where are we currently? What information are you retaining from what we've done? But I would set it out like an exam to create that little bit of, you know, like the condition, the clock being up, okay, your pencils are in front of you, you're at your singular desks, okay, you have 45 minutes silence to try and create that atmosphere. And they responded really well with it, to the point that they started getting really competitive with each other, is in like, well, how did he get that then? And when you brought the scores down, and I've never had kids come to us, level 1 kids as well, to ask for their test scores, to say, well, what did I get then? So what do I get if I get the highest? Because usually it equates to get a prize if they do well with me. So we created a little bit of competition with them. And what then happened was a summative assessment, that booklets became a little bit more creative with it. They would give you more justification to their answers, a little bit more explanation. And it's something I've trialed. I'd like to do it with my basically my A-level equivalent kids, my BTEC, but unfortunately it doesn't fit into the criteria that's there for them as well. But I thought it was good if it was used in the right environment without the pressure. It was just a checkpoint. It was like, this is where we are so far, this is what we've done, as opposed to this is going to be a depict whether you pass or fail right at the end. What are your thoughts on that, using it in that strategy?
Yeah, I mean, and that's why I love doing activities with my students in which they can apply the information, apply what they've learned, because you can only get so much from a test score. If I just give them a midterm and a final, that won't tell me much. Compared to if I have them do, for instance, when I taught research methods, I taught master's students, and I had them go through the whole process of developing a study, and at the very end, they would present it to me as if I were the IRB trying to approve their study to go collect data. But they went through the whole process. They developed their the first few chapters of a research proposal. But just seeing them be able to do that applicable stuff compared to just having them pick A, B, C, or D on a multiple test score. I mean, it's so significantly different. It's so much more powerful, and they get so much more out of that.
Mm-hmm. I totally agree. I think that would be brilliant to have like a semester type project that ran alongside, where you implemented these little, if you like, these little formative assessments of just collecting of information of how they've done, and the different assessment methods as well adds more to the individual learner. It doesn't just condition them to get better in tests. We all better kids who can pull that all-nighter and then go in and ace a test, but they're the minority. The majority of them have to go back to the grind, aren't we? The adversity, the going back, the studying, continuously going through that. I think it would be great if we could have the opportunity to have different strategies for assessment methods as well, especially following that sort of blueprint.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I think we do have a multitude of different assessment methods that highlight or allow students to develop in the way in which they develop. Because I think going down that examination road, like Ben's just said, if it's 4 answers for every question, well, there's a 25% chance that they're going to guess the whole exam, and that then becomes you're a fantastic practitioner if that's what it is, that sports scientist. And I think that that's slowly developing in well, but I do believe that it's really the practitioner behind it as well, and how you do that. And I really like how you've I sort of try and do that with research methods from level 4 to 6. So I'll teach them the basics. Then at level 5 they have to come up with a research proposal, so their own idea, and then level 6 they have to then carry that study out. So it is progressive, but still a lot can be lost in translation, and we don't want to rewind what we've already spoke about again through the interpretation of stuff. But I do agree that the conditioned approach towards something, I think, really is dated. I think, in my opinion, I think we can all agree with that it's not allowing that freedom for someone to develop, and I think it does have a detrimental effect moving forward in their everyday lives. And I think that collectively, as education practitioners and in the field, we can, these sort of discussions, I think, are for me paramount, because we can understand from a UK point of view, but to see what's actually going on in the US is quite powerful, because then we can debate and be like, I wonder if that works, I wonder if this works, because I know environmentally we're very different, culture is very different, but we're still human. At the end of the day, we still cognitively develop, and I think that for me, I think understanding why social media is so prevalent, I think is probably key for us to come up with interventions in order to alleviate, like I said, the more sinister things, but allow us to actually develop as humans and still use social media. Because you're right, Doctor, it's not going anywhere, and it's only going to evolve. And you know what we're like, when something evolves, the masses go, and we all go with it, with the odd person. So I think coming up with a strategy in order to try and really harness what's going on in a positive light, I think can really stem from what we do as teaching practitioners. And I think speaking to you has really opened up some of the things that I was unsure about to now really understanding a lot more around psychology, because it's huge. It's at the epicenter of everything, isn't it? Let's be brutally honest. If you're not psychologically in the right frame of mind, it's a catastrophic effect in any walk of life, in any given job, in any given academic setting. So I think that it's powerful, and just so you know, a lot of our students are watching this, so they'll be definitely in a very a better mindset, I think, and probably equipped with a few more tools, I think, now to maybe deal with some of those things that come their way. So for that, we're really, I really do appreciate your time and explaining that, because it has really been quite informative. And for myself, I'm sitting here thinking, right, I'm going to take what he said there, and I'm going to use that in my practice. So I know my students, you better be listening and taking on board what's going on as well. So from my side, Doctor, I'm really, really appreciate your time and coming on. I don't know, Ben, have you got anything more to add? Or?
No, just like a massive thank you. It's great to sit and have a conversation with somebody on the opposite side of the pond, so to speak, but has the same philosophies that's there and is facing the same issues. It's nice to have like somebody in the trenches with you and with the open mindset as well. And especially for me, given the position you're in, being a doctor, it'll be massive for the kids, the learners, to see that you're still a human being at the end of the day that enjoys a conversation like anybody else does, and hopefully that'll be massively beneficial for the learners growing up as well. But I'd just like to say thank you for spending your Friday putting the world to rights, shall we say,
Yeah, no, it's definitely been a pleasure speaking to you both, and I love talking to people all over the world. I've worked with athletes all over the world, and just having these conversations, I feel is important, right? Because there's so many things that we see, through our media that might portray a certain part of the world that's bad or good or different, right? And so, for instance, I spoke with a gentleman from Pakistan, and I'm helping him develop a sports psychology program there. But our media portrays a lot of Pakistan as negative, like a negative, image. And I'm talking to this guy, and he's just like you and I, great guy. And at the end of the day, there's good and bad people all over the world, and so I could definitely appreciate what you guys are doing there. And having an open mind to have a conversation like this and just be able to learn, because I'm always going to be a learner. I'm always going to be a student. I'm always reading books, listening to people's brains, talking to people all over the world, and I really feel that's an important skill to have, and to never think you know it all, because we don't.
What we're doing now is especially for the learners who are watching, we are currently getting rid of that stereotype. That's what we're doing. And again, thank you for helping me and Chris get rid of the stereotype, the PhD stereotype, if you like. You don't approach them, don't speak to them, no, don't do that. They'll have you, and that fear that comes across from it. So hopefully they'll watch this, see it, and it might encourage them to start having conversations like this with more people. And there is stereotype, whereas people from the Middle East, whereas different parts of Europe, we all inadvertently do it, and me and Chris get stereotyped continuously given the job that we're in as well. And it'll be massive for all of the learners that are watching to see this development, if you like, for them, where people can just have conversations over technology like that. So we're not technophobes, we will try stuff, all right, but it's having like a positive impact for them all as well. It'll be great for their experience and then their development as well.
Yeah, definitely. Sorry to interrupt there, Doctor. Just from my side as well, if you ever want to, catch up again and discuss anything, feel free to drop us a message. We're more than welcome to to come along. I'd love to chat again, you know, sometime in the future, because, you know, it's powerful. Like, you know, we've shown here, like we've just said, you know, I mean, I use email to communicate with people, and apparently I'm a dinosaur for doing that. But, you know, we've used a social media platform in a way to communicate in the power of conversation. You know, I hope that, you know, we can really connect with people and allow them to understand that actually when you're sitting next to someone, communicate with them via the human, you know, interaction process as opposed to that social media process. And hopefully, you know, we can develop some strategies or certainly start implementing things, because I'm definitely going to take some of the things that you've said and implement them into me practice as well as me teaching. And it'll be great to catch up to say, oh, actually, do you know what? This worked and this worked, and you know, hopefully we can develop some strategies to really try and you know, we aren't going to transform the world. That's not going to happen. But I think you're right. Just communicating and talking and you know, expressing some of these current issues can certainly allow someone, maybe who's even watching now, to be, well, actually, yeah, I understand what they're saying. I'm going to implement that. I mean, that's powerful. That's massive. So thank you very much for your time.
Yeah.
Enjoy the sunshine, and we're going to enjoy the lovely cold weather. And yeah, so I hope to speak to you soon.
Definitely.
And again, thank you very much, Doctor.
It's been a pleasure.
Oh, it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much for having me. And yeah, please keep in touch.
Yeah, will do. Thank you very much.
Good luck with everything.
All right. Have a good day.
Good luck.
Have a good night, guys.
Bye-bye.
Bye now.